Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well on this lovely Saturday morning. It is really sunny and bright here in Florida, and the weather is actually really nice. It's 72 degrees. It was just 70 early. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. So we're here about a workshop for the how to become an effective comforter. And last night when I did it, I unfortunately my slides didn't work, but today it does. So we're going to quickly go over it again, and then I want you to be able to document what we're discussing because I think this will help you. The book that I forgot to mention last night that I use as a reference guide for all the guidelines, and I use it as a textbook for my courses, is What to Say When You Don't Know What to Say by Dr. H. Norman Wright. This is a wonderful book. This is the second book I'm going through. My first one, it's a nightmare. All the underlines, circles, and highlighted. So go ahead and upgrade the slides. There we go. Thank you. So I want to welcome you to Unplugged Grief Ministries. I am a certified grief and life coach, and I'm completing my mental health coach. You can find more about me and everything that I'm doing through my ministry, including on my podcast courses I'm going to be teaching and the one-on-ones at our website, unpluggedgrief.org. And the reason why, let's see if I can find my cursor. It's the reason why I'm so passionate to teach this class and to present it to you is because there's so much good and wonderful information, and there was so much good and wonderful resources that are out there and that we also have. But this has been my main textbook. Dr. Wright writes many wonderful books. When I first went through my grief experience with losing my son, the first book that I read from Dr. Wright is called Experiencing Grief. It's a little blue book, and it really, 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 you don't know how many times I read that. And then he has another book that came out that I read on a daily basis with the muscular dystrophy. And my mind just went blank on the name of that book, but it's a wonderful book to use as a devotion because it really opened your eyes, not only mentally, emotionally, but also spiritually. So, how to become an effective griever? Comfort. I don't know why I keep saying griever because we're already effective grievers. So, how to become an effective comforter? There's so many different things in the guidelines that we can use to help, especially if you're involved in the church ministry or if you have your own grief ministry. Some of these guidelines will really help you. And what I'm presenting in this short time is just a tiny bit of what Dr. Wright teaches us about it. So it's a step forward, but it gives you an idea of how to get started. So, there are many times we have friends that come who may be grieving. They may have had some type of loss, and they may want to talk to you or want your help. And I know sometimes we have a hard time understanding, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to respond to this? Because if you're not prepared for it and you have not ever been trained for it, it is going to be complicated of knowing what to say and what not to say, and what to do and what not to do. And last night we went through all the what not to do's, and I'm going to show it here too. But we also show what the best things to say when somebody says something and helping them. So, but I want to bring it up that we as Christians, we have the opportunity of sharing God's love in a way of comfort, encouragement, and support. So for many of them who are having difficulty enduring their loss. For me, when I lost my mother, it's been 50 years, and I took it very hard as a 10-year-old. My siblings grieved totally different. And it must be that I'm the most emotional one in the family, because everybody dealt with their grief differently. Their perspective of everything of her loss was totally different than what I did. It's what I went through. I remember the first year after my mother's death, I remember laying in bed, hiding under my sheets, crying silently because I was afraid that my other sisters would judge and criticize my grief. Even as an 11 and 12-year-old, I sort of understood that part and how much we were told to don't express yourself. So in other words, hide it, stuff it. But we as Christians need to be able to bring that love, to bring that support, and to bring that encouragement, okay? And one of his other books I really enjoyed, one of the things that he said that I really, really has made part of me is the 7-letter word for encouragement is comfort. So when you're comforting someone, you're also encouraging them to give them that comfort that they need to motivate them, to uplift them. But comforting someone is more than just words. It's actions. What are you doing to show comfort to your friend who's grieving? And we need to learn what the appropriate words are to use. And I'm going to show you more about this in these coming slides that are coming up. So what's coming up here is we're going to learn about the gift of listening. Okay, and what we're going to share is just a little tiny bit of what he really, because he has another whole chapter of it and a whole different story. And it's really, really encouraging. Then we're also going to learn how to be patient. That's last night when my computer was acting up and I was really frustrated. I lost my patience. But you have to learn to be patient with the comforter. And we're going to talk about that really quick. And then the practical help that we can provide. And then we're going to talk about what not to do, but what is best to do. Okay? So Dr. Wright has a wonderful quote that I love that he mentioned in this book, What to Say When You Don't Know What to Say. It's, like I said, it's my main textbook to become an effective comforter. He says, your encouragement for him or her is to express their feelings, and it will help them understand that you are not going to withdraw. So what does that mean? You're not going to withdraw. You're not going to vanish on them. You're not going to abandon them. You will be there for them for as long as they need you. It may be days, it may be weeks, it may be months, and I hate to say this, it even may be years, because everybody grieves on a different timeline, and we have to respect the griever's timeline. It may not be our timeline, and we may want to rush them, but you can't rush a griever. It's their timeline. It's their grief. It's their loss. We're there to be that comfort, because that's what God calls us to do, to this ministry, to be a comfort, to teach and to learn from them. They're going to learn from listening to us, but we're going to learn from listening to them. So here are some of the main factors of the do nots. Okay? The do nots are the four majors. Is do not withdraw from the relative or friend. Okay? Do not withdraw from them. As I just said earlier, don't leave, don't vanish. If you promise you're going to call them, call them. If you promise you're going to pray for them, pray for them. If you promise that you're going to come by and help around the house, then do it. Oh, I'm sorry, that went back too fast. Okay? And I want you to think, if this was you, what would you need? What would you desire to have help for? You have to almost put yourself, unfortunately, in their shoes. Because remember, we all went through this with our grief. And you know what happens with immediate loss? Where our mind goes when it becomes foggy. And do not compare, evaluate, or judge their response or their behavior, because they're grieving. And it depends how the loss of that loved one, it might have been an immediate loss, unexpected. They're in shock. But however their grief is and how they respond to you, we do not want to compare what they're going through. Now, another compare I have also is that we talk about a lot is comparing losses. The way my son died, I cannot compare it to the way my mother died or the way your child died. Our grief on how our child died, it has nothing to do how they died. Okay? It doesn't matter right now how they died. The moment is your grief of your loss of your loved one. Don't compare if your loss is greater than mine or if my loss is greater than yours, because it doesn't happen that way. And another thing that I've learned also that we're going to discuss also is how people think about comparing animals to the loss of human beings. And we'll discuss that in a few minutes. Do not look for sympathy for yourself, because a lot of times when we're trying to be that encourager, to be that comforter, sometimes we draw that griever into our own little comfort grievance zone. Right now, mentally, they're not ready to listen to that part of you. And it's not that they don't have respect or understand who you are. They understand your grief. But right now, their mind is not there. So if you really need help on talking to somebody about your grief, then you need to find someone else, because the griever right now can't listen to that. And do not patronize or pity this person. And I think you may know what that means. If not, we're going to discuss it again in a few minutes. So when we talk about the withdrawal, as I said, whenever there's a loss, the griever needs continuing and ongoing support from a number of family and friends, people, including church family and the community, including co-workers. Co-workers. I've heard a lot of things of what goes through in an employment when somebody comes back from a grief. It's painful. And whenever there's a death, your bereaved friend will need you in the upcoming days, weeks, and months, and even maybe years. Please do not stop calling, emailing, texting, or sending cards or visiting. They need you. If you leave, then you know what that is, especially after you made that promise. It's another loss to them. And it makes their loss even greater. And even here, they even talk about the loneliness. It makes the loneliness even greater. And when people stop checking on the griever begins to feel alone, abandoned, and left alone to grieve. Don't assume that they have recovered. Their loneliness will seem worse. This creates an incredible feeling of isolation. In all types of grief, no matter what it is, we need to make sure there are support groups, that either at the church or GriefShare has a wonderful support group. There's another group for parents who've lost children that is a wonderful support group that meets on a monthly basis, and it's pretty good for a lot of people, and other people they just don't feel it. So, and then do not compare. As we talked about, do not compare. The worst thing is to do is to compare losses. My losses not any less or greater than others, and always when check in with them. Always check in with your friend who's grieving and be there just to see how they're doing since their loved one has passed away. And the most important thing is to let the person talk about without feeling that you are judging them or you're comparing them or evaluating them. That's not our job to judge or compare or do anything like that. Our job is to be there for the griever. Okay? Our job is to be the comfort, to help them around the house, in the yard, shopping or food, to be the encourager. To be the encourager. But most importantly, to be present. To be present. So here's some of the do not like we talked about. Do not look for sympathy for yourself and don't patronize them. And I know this may sound strange, but it happens. Many talk about their own loss and grief in effort to express this sorrow and empathy. And this is the time for us to give, not to receive. So if you need to talk to someone, find someone else. And the grievers aren't the best place to offer support or dig out subtle messages that people are trying to send. And patronizing any kind of condescending response or behavior tends to reinforce hurt and adds another layer of inadequacy. And patronizing and pity shows that you really don't care like we say we do. We really, but we do care. And to show how much we have compassion for this and care, we need to maybe instill these guidelines so that it will help us individually, okay? But it also helps you to become a better comforter. And here's some of the do's. Okay, I am sorry, but I'm going to have to bring that up on a bigger screen because that came out really, really tiny. So the do's is, there are several positive guidelines to follow when ministering to a friend and a relative or a friend. And the first step is to simply accepting what has happened. So what has happened? What has happened? A lot of people is going through maybe an immediate death. In other words, like me, my mother was an immediate death. In a sense, my grandfather was too. My son was not an immediate death. He suffered from Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So that illness for him lasted for about 21 years. And but that's not what this is referring to. So we want to make sure that our first step is to simply accepting what has happened and how they are responding. And you may have your own perspective of what your friend should be doing or how he should be responding, but you do not have the power or the authority on them. So you will need to suspend your expectations, accept him, and let them know his feelings are normal. And some people may want to apologize for how they're feeling, but don't, let them know that what they're going through is it's normal and it's natural through for the grief. But you, as the encourager, by accepting their feelings and the fact that but the most important thing that we can do is to give them a gift of letting them face their feelings and expressing them. Let them speak, because I'm sure you probably may remember this through your own grief. When you talk about it, even if you have to yell it and scream. When you talk about it, and let it out. It helps with the healing process because you begin to feel that burden roll off. So let them cry. Let them, just tell them that you understand their pain. You understand what they're feeling. And if, the proper things, if I experienced what you have been through, I would feel like opening my eyes and letting the flood of tears coming out. But another thing that we have to remember is grief is also, as you all remember, that we go through that anger. And it's another feeling that is difficult for many people to express. And you can use comments like, it's natural to feel anger and hostility towards everyone and everything that had to do with their wife's death. I would feel angry too. But here's another statement. You must be very angry that your baby suffered and you can't do anything about it. And it's normal and reasonable to be angry and resentful when you lost your baby while others have healthy ones. But your encouragement to help them express their feelings will help them understand that you are not going to withdraw from them, that you're going to be there, you're not going to leave, because you're not going to withdraw, you're not going to leave because of them expressing their feelings or because they express their anger. You're going to continue to show comfort and support for them because that's what is promised. So I think that when you read from this book, the do's and what we can do to help them, it's really it's rewarding when you can be there to just be present. Just be present. Even if you don't know what to say or you don't know what to do, just be present. You know the saying, action speaks louder than words? Just be present. So the gift of listening is one of the greatest gifts that we can give to a bereaved friend or loved one who is hurting, and that is the gift of listening. And when people know you hear them, they will begin to trust more and more, and they will feel safe with you. Does that make sense? And they will have greater desires to invite you back into their homes. And if you are a good listener, and they will respond from learning by listening to your examples you share with them. Small and brief, not a whole story. I know, easier said than done. And let your friends share with you and gently help them identify their statements, such as the if-onlys and the regrets-related statements. And most important, don't say too much to the hurting griever. Your presence speaks volumes. Just be present. And sensitivity of Joseph Biden talked about this soon after he lost his 3 sons. He said sensitivity in the presence of grief. Don't try to prove anything to the survivor. An arm around his shoulder, a firm grip of the hand, and a kiss. These are the proofs of grief needs to be to logical reasoning. Patience. Oh my goodness. That is a virtue that we all need to learn, that God is trying to teach us, is patience. But this type of patience is being able to be patient with the griever and understanding that their pain and when they need to express their feelings and even their anger, we need to be patient with them. And we don't need to be yelling, that's enough. Stop. That's not for us to do. Our job is just to be patient, to share that necessary quality, character of how much you love and your kindness and your warmth, comfort to them, so that you are there. They trust you now. They want to be able to talk. Let them talk, even if it means they're angry and they're upset and they may be yelling and they may be pulling their hair and they're screaming and crying. It's a pain that sometimes some of us cannot bear. And it's difficult the first 2 years or first 3 years. difficult. We just have to be patient and be there for them because that's their desire. And here are some of the practical helps that I think that you will really enjoy. Again, I'm sorry that that is small print. You know, when you do it, when you do it on PowerPoint or whatever, it doesn't really, I mean, you create the fonts to be big, but you can say that it's not like that. But there are many practical things that we can do to help, regardless of the type of loss. And I hope you will begin to recognize and respond to the different types of losses people experience. And some which don't even get to get much social recognition or support. Any major loss cuts deep, whether it's a divorce, personal rejections, loss of a job, or death. Which each loss you will need to, number one, discover your friend's personal situation and needs. And number two, decide what you're willing and able to do for them, realizing that you can neither do it all or nor should you. And number three, contact them and offer to do the difficult jobs that you've chosen to do. Like, and if your friend rejects the offer, suggest something else. Be specific of what you want to do to help. In other words, do you want to help feeding the pets or walking the dogs, making meals and delivering it, doing yard work and delivering meals, making difficult phone calls, obtaining needed information regarding support groups or new employment and providing transportation, and being able to run errands and so forth. At some point in this time, giving them the sensitive support book on loss and grief can be helpful. And if the loss is affected with one person, minister to that person. But if it affects the whole family needs to be ministered to as well. But be sensitive to every one of their needs. This one husband who lost his wife, so many people kept saying he was so tired of people asking him people asking how my wife was doing. And for once, I wish they asked how I'm doing. Discover which of the social environments will be the most difficult for them and be available for support. And as the years go by, friends and relatives lost loved ones. Prior to Christmas, go through your card list and make sure that you don't mistakenly say Mr. and Mrs. And although I think, I guess it's everybody's perspective. Dr. Wright is saying that to delete the Mr. or the Mrs. To me, I think it's a memorial thing that you're letting them know that you're remembering their spouse, their loved one. And that's why I do it. Well, for the first few years, people used to send cards to me and Timothy, D and Timothy Burke, my son. But then after he passed away, it was just to me. But whenever I sent out Christmas cards, I included my son. I know he wasn't alive, but I still included him. Why wouldn't I? He may not be physically present here, but he is here in my heart. So, I mean, try to be determine that kind of evaluate that kind of decision and what you think may be appropriate at the time. But it sometimes it can be really painful for someone, but at other times it just is not. So we go to the next slide. So the summary of this is that for us to become effective comforters, we need to be able to learn and be trained so that we understand everything that we're taught. Like I said, this book from Dr. Wright is my main textbook, although I use a lot of my information that I learned from him from many of his other textbooks and other books, because they all have wonderful things that they share and provide with us. And like I said, here's my resource. Dr. Wright is my mentor, and he knows that. I've never met the man in my life, but when I was going through that grief and that research, I'm going to share the story real quick because I think I still have time. When like about 6 months to a year after Timothy died, and you know how at the funerals or memorial service you have friends and family giving you a hug and that saying I'll be there for you, I'll call you, and all that stuff, and then suddenly they vanish, including relatives. Where did everybody go? There's no phone calls, there's no texts, there's no emails. I'm sure many of you remember how this has happened and may still be experiencing it. I am. I still don't get the phone calls. I still don't get the texts. And I do, from only one system, I do get emails and calls from my stepmom. And what she experienced was different from what I experienced. She experienced losing my father. They were married nearly for 25 years. And she received effective comforting from her church. Her church was there. Her church family was there for everything that she needed. To shovel snow, to cut trees, to mow the lawn, to help fix things around the house, to help evaluate things. She went to support groups. She did all the right things, and her church family and her co-workers that were there for her, they all did the right things. So the question is, why is society, major of society, does not understand how to properly comfort someone, how to properly say what to say for them, to them. The things we're not supposed to say, and things that we should say and do to bring comfort. So that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching these courses on my website. You can visit me at www.unpluggedgrief.com. You can also catch me on my Facebook page, Unplugged Grief, Grief and Life Coaching and Consulting. And most of my activities lately has been on my podcast. It's on Anchor audio. It's on Anchor, but I do record it on Zoom and bring it into YouTube so that you can, I think it's good to listen if you're walking, but if you're just sitting down, it's good to see the tone, the expression of the body when people are being honest of how their loss has come to them. And I hope that what we have provided here at the Global Grief Conference is a comfort to you or your friend or a family member, because that's why we're here. We're here for you. So the rest of the day is going to be a day of remembrance, a day that to remember that we are the encourager. Be the encourager for yourself. You got to start with yourself, your core self, because unless you don't understand how to embrace grief or to comfort yourself, it's going to be difficult to do it, to be there for someone else. And I had this class, it's an 8-week course. We go through this book, all through it, all 14 chapters. And this book, it really, really helped me. And like I said earlier, Dr. Wright has written a lot of good books, but I have learned also from Clara Hinton, Silent Grief, and Gary Cole. He has done a lot of wonderful, wonderful books that he's written in the last few years, and they're very good for morning meditations or even evening meditations. I'm sorry, my dog is bugging me here. I'm trying to get her up so she can stop bugging me. And I'm sorry for this hour. I want you to sit down and hopefully take note of this. But if you go to Amazon.com, this book is right now has a very good price on it. I usually buy it bulk because of my classes from Dr. Wright from his website. His secretary is wonderful. She's helped me buy the books bulk, and it's It's an awesome, awesome thing to learn how to be an effective comforter. And I've learned with my church family, is that I have to start from the top in training. That means training my pastor. And the reason why I say that is because when I was going through that research and trying to figure out why family and friends vanished, all the research and studies and classes and everything I took made me realize that the reason why so many people are no longer around me is because they're uncomfortable with my grief. But the thing is, my grief is not in a deep, dark hole. I have not fallen back into that deep depression. In fact, I feel better. I feel hopeful. I feel joyful. I feel positive. And that's what we want for you. Just to sit down and take notes of what we're sharing with you, because we love and care enough for everybody that comes to our conference. And I'm working on a proposal. I'll be holding a big seminar for all the pastors in Florida and teaching them how to become an effective comforter. It's going to be a 3 or 4 day seminar where they can get certified for that. So I thank God every day that we can be here for each other and bring that comfort for each other. But it has to begin with us and our inner self. But once you find that out and you bring it in, you will change. You will feel that change. Yes, your loss changed you. And maybe it changed you for the better. I hate to say that, but I know too many people who are stuck in that deep, dark hole of grief. They don't know how to get out. They just keep digging themselves deeper and deeper. They keep sinking in that sinking sand. What was that? So we want to pull you out of that. That's why we're here, to pull you out and to give you hope. Friends, whether you want to be trained, whether you are a griever or still a griever, one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself is to teach yourself. I think it was Jenny when we talked on the podcast the other day, we discovered that grief is a teacher. I want to end there. Grief is a teacher. We learn so much of the pain that we experience of our loss. But that grief, that experience that we went through, even whatever we went through the past, gave us and made us a better person. And then, because of that, we find our purpose. We find our purpose. At first, you don't want to see it. And you don't want to hear about it because you're in that deep grief. But I tell you what, when you seek it, just like the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God. When you seek God, God will do the rest. All we have to do is trust him. Just trust him and let him be your teacher. We are here for the spirit of healing, and we want you to be part of that. I thank you for being here, for being part of, okay, I don't have a next slide. So being part of this, and I hope in this short time that you can at least learn some few good things. A few things is better than nothing at all. Grief is a teacher, and because grief is a teacher, we are here in the spirit of healing. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for being part of this. God bless.